everyone. This is Attorney Angel. We are now in part 4 of the COMELEC PowerPoint presentation, and we will be discussing numbers 2 to 10 of the top 10 election offenses based on the complaints filed before the Law Department of the COMELEC. Of course, I hope and pray that you are all safe, healthy, and well. We will now continue where we left off last time. So last time, we tackled the number 1 on the list on vote buying and vote selling. And I mentioned that with respect to the elements of the offenses, you have to look out for who the offender is, what are the acts committed or omitted. And then, of course, you have to look for the purpose for the commission or the omission of the act. So, we have here number 2, threats, intimidation, terrorism, use of fraudulent device or other forms of coercion. So, who is the offender in this offense? The offender can be any person. And that person can either commit the offense directly or indirectly through the following acts. Either threaten, intimidate, or actually cause, inflict, or produce any of the following: violence, injury, punishment, damage, loss or disadvantage upon any person or persons or that of the immediate members of his family, his honor, or property. Or that person or offender uses any fraudulent device or scheme. And the purpose for such acts, the purpose is to compel or induce the registration or refraining from registration of any voter, or the participation in any campaign, or refraining or desistance from any campaign, or the casting of any vote or omission to vote, or any promise of such registration, campaign, vote, or omission therefrom. For number 3, we have unlawful electioneering. And who is the offender here? Any person can be an offender. A person who solicits votes or undertakes any propaganda. And also, do take note that here, the time or the period of commission of the offense as well as the location of the commission of the offense are very important ingredients or elements for the commission of this offense. So we have for the period or time that the act should have been done. The act should have been done on the day of registration before the BEI or the Board of Election Inspectors, or on the election day or day of election for or against any candidate or any political party. As for the location, the act must have been done within the polling place and within a radius of 30 meters thereof. Please refer to Section 261CC6 of the Omnibus Election Code with respect to soliciting of votes or undertaking any propaganda within the polling place or within the radius of 30 meters thereof. Okay. Here, the act must have been done on the day of the election. But the same with the act that should have been done within the polling place or within the radius of 30 meters thereof. Number 4, we have conspiracy to bribe voters. So since this is a conspiracy, of course, the offenders consist of 2 or more persons, and the offenders may or may not be candidates. Okay? And of course, as you know, in conspiracy, the offenders must come to an agreement concerning the commission of any violation of the offense. And here, they must have come to an agreement concerning the commission of the violation of paragraph A of 261 of the OEC with respect to vote buying and vote selling, and they decide to commit it. But please note that conspiracy to commit a crime is not to be confused with conspiracy as a means to commit a crime. Oh wait, I wasn't able to share with you the slides. Okay. Yes, this is number 2. Number 3. Number 4. For number 5, we have use of public funds or equipment. It involves the use of public funds, money deposited in trust, equipment, facilities owned or controlled by the government for an election campaign. So, who is the offender here? The offender can be any person. And under the guise of whatsoever, that person acts directly or indirectly with respect to the offense. And with respect to the act, it was committed for the purpose of an election campaign or for purposes of partisan political activity. Number 6, intervention of public officers and employees. Who are the offenders, or who is the offender? In this case, any officer or employee in the civil service except those holding political offices. Okay? Also, the offender can be any officer, employee, or member of the AFP or any police force, special forces, home defense forces, barangay self-defense units, and all other paramilitary units that now exist or which may hereafter be organized. Okay? As to the act, the offender or person liable, again, may directly or indirectly intervene in any election campaign or engage in any partisan political activity, with the exception of the act of voting or preserving public order if if the offender is a peace officer. Number 7, tampering of voters' application for registration. Again, here, the offender can be any person. And as to the act, the offender or such person tampers with or changes without authority any data or entry in any voter's application for registration. Number 8, transfer of officers and employees in the civil service. Here, please take note that the timing or the period of the transfer of officers and employees in the civil service is material. Okay, the fact of transfer or detail of the public officer or employee must be within the election period as fixed by the COMELEC to constitute an election offense. And another one is that the transfer detail was effected without prior approval from the Commission on Elections. Number 9, gun ban violations. Okay, for the prohibitions, please refer to A, carrying or transporting firearms under Section 261 Q of the Omnibus Election Code and Section 32 of RA 7166. And for letter B, employment or availment of security guards or personnel, please refer to Section 33 of RA 7166. As to letter A, carrying or transporting of firearms, okay, the offender can be any person. Okay? And take note that although he has a permit or possesses a permit to carry the firearm, what is prohibited is if he carries such firearms outside his place of residence or place of business during the election period set by the Commission on Elections. Okay, the only exception is when such person is authorized by the COMELEC in writing. Okay? And there is also the proviso that a motor vehicle, water, or aircraft shall not be considered as residence or place of business or an extension of his or her residence or place of business. Okay, so as a general rule, during the election period, no person shall bear, carry, or transport firearms or other deadly weapons in public places, including any building, street, park, private vehicle, or public conveyance, even if license to possess or carry the same. Okay. So, question, who may bear firearms? As we mentioned in letter A, only those who are authorized in writing by the Commission on Elections may bear firearms. Okay, so unless authorized in writing by the COMELEC, and you possess these deadly weapons and firearms, you may be liable or you may be held liable for an election offense. Okay. Okay. Also, please take note that the issuance of firearms license or permits shall be suspended during the election period, as provided by the law. Another one who may bear firearms. Okay. So, only regular members of the PNP, the AFP, and other law enforcement agencies of the government who are duly deputized in writing by the Commission on Elections for the election duty may be authorized to carry and possess firearms during the election period set by the COMELEC. Okay, but there is a proviso that when in the possession of firearms, the deputized law enforcement officer must conform to the following. Okay, he or she must be in full uniform, showing clearly and legibly his or her name, rank, and serial number, and this must remain visible at all times. And another one, that it must be in the actual performance of his or her election duty in the specific area designated by the Commission on Elections. As to the exception, those who may not be held liable for carrying firearms outside the residence or the place of business, as we said, those who are authorized in writing by the COMELEC. We also have cashiers and disbursing officers while in the performance of their duties, and persons who by nature of their official duties, profession, business, or occupation habitually carry large sums of money or valuables. For letter B, the general rule is similar to letter A. There is a prohibition during the election period. So, no candidate for public office, also including incumbent public officers seeking election to public office, they cannot or they are prohibited from employing or availing themselves or engaging the services of security personnel or bodyguards, whether these bodyguards come from the AFP, the PNP, or other law enforcement agencies of the government. But when circumstances warrant, like threats to life and the threat to the security of the candidate, upon due application by the candidate, the COMELEC may assign any member of the PNP, AFP, or the other law enforcement agency of the government as security personnel or bodyguard. Okay, but also only during the election period. And the officers assigned for the duty or security duty to the candidate shall also conform to the prescribed standards or conditions with respect to wearing of uniforms, as we have mentioned earlier, unless they are exempted in writing by the Commission on Elections. And number 10, voting in substitution for another. So the offender may be any person, and with respect to the act, such offender votes in substitution for another, whether with or without the latter's knowledge and or consent. That's it for part 4 of the COMELEC PowerPoint presentation slides. So next week, we will have the last PowerPoint presentation slides from the COMELEC Law Department. Thank you for listening, and stay safe, stay healthy, and always pray. And do not forget to glorify God with a grateful heart. Thank you very much. Thank you, my fellow angels. We're now at 624. Like, subscribe, share, and follow. This is Attorney Angel, and I'm your legal angel.